recording. Okay, we are now live. Or I guess we've been live, but now we're actually recording. So welcome back, everybody. Hope the end of 2021 was good. Had good holidays and stuff. I know Cathy got everything under the sun that she could have possibly wanted, so hers was great.
Thanks. Throw me under the bus.
I mean, just technicalities. But joined tonight by two guest hosts. I got Cathy, as I already mentioned, Stick Girl 390, and Rawl, aka AJ. And we're going to go through some damage cards. We've actually got up on the screen right now kind of, I think, all of the cards that deal some type of direct damage inside of set 1. I think what would probably be worth doing, actually change the sorting on these, is maybe start off by just going through and kind of reading each one and kind of setting the groundwork, and then I want to go through and draw some comparisons, talk about some color pie stuff, talk about some scaling, and just kind of have a discussion about these cards and start to really dig a little bit deeper into the design aspect and, like, you know, why certain cards are the way that they are and if some of them need to change. I think that we've got a couple that have kind of been on the... They've had the spotlight on them.
Just a couple?
There are two that you know are, like, front and forward. Like,
I hate those two.
most people do. Nobody really has a great time playing against them, and the people who play them are just like, you know, always got it in the back of the head, like, oh, well, I have these cards, so I can just do whatever I want. But
I have a card to add to that list, but you won't add it. That's okay. Anyways.
Okay, I had to think for a second what it was. Oh, that actually reminds me. There is actually one card that I don't have in this list.
You have the shrine?
I don't have the dark one. I have the water one.
Yeah.
That's probably
I
worth
didn't
grabbing
see
real
it.
quick. Yeah, it's probably worth grabbing real quick. Give me just a second, and I can...
Gaze wanders onto Ken's computer, everyone.
Yeah, so here, why don't you guys go ahead, if you don't mind, while I look this up, can you guys just kind of spoil the first card? And we'll click
No.
through these real quick, and just kind of, like I said,
spoiled
give them a
this.
quick rundown.
Spoil it. Arsonist. So this is a multicolor card. It costs 4, 2, a darkness and a fire. It is a unit that is a human subtype. It's got a couple abilities when it's depending on what sort of essence you bind to it. So if you bind this card to a darkness essence, it gets +1 power. If it's bound to a fire essence, it gets +2 initiative. And of course, if you have a dual essence on it, it would get both of those things. It also has, when this card enters play, if played as the first action of the turn, deal damage equal to the card's power to target structure. And then you can see the stat line there. I forget, we keep reading the stat lines off differently. Do you say that, like, 2, 2,
I just
4?
read it in order.
We just read them in
3
order right
CCC,
now.
4
Yeah.
HP, 2 power, 2
4,
speed.
2, 2.
Yeah. I mean, people already know this card. I mean, we already have videos on all
Yeah.
the cards that we've seen, you know.
We don't have to take a long time on these cards
Yeah.
right now, introducing them, just to get them in the mix, just to get a little quick refresher for anybody who maybe didn't see a previous video. They can know what we're talking about tonight.
True. But to, like, really capitalize and say, like, what we're focusing on here in tonight's stream is specifically the third ability.
Yeah, absolutely.
When this
Good-
card
good
enters
point.
play, if played as the first action of the turn, deal damage to this card's power to target structure.
Awesome. Yep.
So
Yeah,
that's,
just
that's
gonna-
the whole premise of tonight's stream.
Yeah, focusing on that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click. Here's the next one, and I think we'll start to see a pretty clear pattern
Flame
emerge.
Warrior, deal 1 damage target structure unit. You know,
We're just spoiling the damage line.
I mean, more or less. Like, as we get into
That's
the
fine. I just wanted to.
yeah, as we start to talk more, we will compare a little more specifically. But yeah, yeah. So go. I mean, yeah, 1 damage. This one doesn't scale. Obviously, the previous one did, but we'll go ahead. Here's the next card.
Deal damage
love
to
this
target
card.
unit equal to this card's power. I mean, can you build a deck that has air that doesn't have Call Lightning?
I don't think anybody's tried it yet.
No, because they're wrong. You know, it scales both 2 ways. This one, you know, you can through the essence, like you can do fire essence to give it power, or just a normal airbound or air essence to give it power.
Yeah, true.
There's
true.
multiple ways to scale this one.
Absolutely. Okay, here's the next one.
Deal 3 damage to all structures. Earthbound exhausts all units with power less than the number of cards in your resource zone. This one, the damage is not really scaling, but the exhaust is scaled.
Yeah, true.
So,
Okay, here's another.
Firebomb once again, no scaling, unless you add a certain essence to it, but it's just 1 damage to all units and all structures. That includes the shrines, things like guard check, and of course your units.
Yep. Okay. This one barely
yeah.
makes the list, but he's in
Yeah,
there.
he's in there. Plays your first action, deal 1 damage to target structure, and then any non-shrine structure damage by this card is destroyed at the end of turn. No scaling, just like quick 1 damage, maybe blow up a guard check.
Yeah, it scales
one-
if you're doing something specific, kind of.
Yep.
Yep.
It's not really scaling. It's just
Well, it either deals
Ability.
1 or deals all, right?
Wave.
Yeah, go ahead,
This
Kathy. You
card's
can read this one.
powerful. Deal damage equal to this card's power to all enemy units. It's one of the few like Wrath of God type effects in the game right now.
Yeah, but it's totally a plague wind.
this is a yeah. So this card is, as Ken mentioned earlier, one under the microscope, as you
Scrutiny.
will. Scrutiny. Ken and I played the one day that we really realized it. We played maybe 2-3 hours in a row, just like matches, and every time this card was drawn, it was just like, oh, I win, GG.
Yep.
Yeah, next game.
Here's a couple of things that I'll say really quickly before we move into the real in-depth comparisons. The earliest version of this was like the
This is what version
fifth
4,
card that
5?
I made. No. This
Yeah.
is like the 5th card that I ever made, and the text that's on this right now has actually never changed. This is actually
wow.
version 1. There are 6 different versions that I've tried, and then come back to this, and then tried, and then come back to this, and I just keep resetting to this because it's obviously what the cards are printed as right now, and it's just what we've kind of had. But it has always been maybe just the most powerful card in the game. Like the card that when you play it leads to the most won games of any other card. And I think that, yes, there will always be a most powerful card, but I don't think it needs to be so obvious as this one.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's another lovely.
Deal damage equal to this card's speed to all exhausted units.
This is another one that's been under the microscope.
Yeah, these are the main two.
Yeah, because in Air, Air's got a lot of resources to exhaust, or you wait for your opponent to do an all-out attack, and then you just one-side board wipe them consistently.
Yep.
Because it only has 2 CCC, so you can put a lot of speed onto this card.
And in case anybody who's watching hasn't caught on yet, you've got air symbols in the top right-hand corner of this card, air symbols in the top right-hand corner of this card. There's a common theme here, and maybe if only one of these existed, it wouldn't be that big of an issue. But since they both exist and they're both the same color,
it's so easy to splash Air
Yeah.
just for literally these 2 cards and just blow your opponent out constantly.
decks that can leverage these the best are just so hard to interact with because they just always have the get out of jail free card, especially playing.
It's pretty much if you didn't end the game by turn 5, you lost the game.
Yeah.
This is honestly how I felt playing against that deck.
You think it's easy enough to splash 3 air?
It's splash might not be the right word, but you build any strategy you want. You're just I'm gonna jam 6 or 9 dual lands into this strategy, and now I can choose to play Heat Wave and Hurricanes.
Yeah, it's not hard. I mean, I did it. I splashed literally 1 red in my 2-color deck and consistently play it.
It costs
So
5, so you're gonna have a
You got
lot of
time.
resources.
You have time to
out
set it
for
up exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Encouragement plans. Oh, this is the old version.
Yeah, these are all the starter versions. I've got the files open that we could talk about going forward, towards a little later on after we get some of the groundwork laid.
So this one doesn't scale, but it's just consistent damage over time. First time you hit with a stealth unit, you just get to do an extra damage target unit, and it's actually super good.
Yeah,
We
this
played-
effect is
I played
very,
the
very
version.
strong.
Yeah.
You had already
We
mentioned that this is
buffed the
the old
first
version.
version.
Yeah, this is the quote unquote old version. That bottom line of text, the dead zone effect, is super reliable, super reasonable. It has
Literally
a good
made my whole deck work.
yeah, it has a really good feel to it. It just feels.
It wasn't overpowering,
Exactly.
but it was just enough to
Yeah.
get the gears turning and help out.
Agreed. So here's another really good card.
Gip. This card has theoretically infinite scaling.
Yep.
It's whenever you play an air event, give this card +1 power, +1 speed, and you may pay air, tap it, daze this card to deal damage equal to this card's power to target unit. So if you don't answer this card, sometimes you just get blown out.
It's true.
You're oh, I have a 10 health guy. All right, I'll play a lot of spells this turn. Blow that guy up and just keep going.
Yeah,
Air's got a lot of good resources to draw. Call lightnings. There's a lot of things that you can combo multiple air spells in one turn or air
Sure,
events.
air
in one
events,
turn.
yeah.
And
Agreed.
Just keep going. So
all right.
theoretically infinite scaling, but not infinite.
Yeah, it'll never really truly be infinite,
Right.
but it has pretty much the bounds are not limited by the card at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, another card that scales off the essence. Deal damage equal to this card's power to target structure. You know, you can leave
Love
it as is. You can give it essence of might, make it 4. No, you can't.
No, it doesn't fit might.
But you know, any power inducing essence gives it.
Yeah, or power inducing effect.
Yeah,
Or
or
I
power
was
inducing
playing
effect.
the other day where I had the +1 power on it, and I drew all 3 into my opening hand and just kept them, and just ram. And Ken's like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose."
Yeah,
I thought I was turning the corner that game. I was not.
Rubain!
Speak of
This
the
is,
gentleman who's watching the stream.
This was
right
like
now.
the last card we
Yeah.
spoiled on the last stream, right? Like this is the
Yep,
last thing
it
people have
was.
seen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very it's just an arsonist effect from the first card we talked about. Just
Yeah.
this card enters plays its first action, deal damage equal to this card's power to target shrine. Once again, based on essences can
Yeah.
make it go higher, or any other effect that
Yeah, it's a
power.
big epic arsonist with a lot more like
Yeah.
impact
When
on
I
the
played-
board when it shows up, because those bottom 2
I
effects
played
also end
this
up mattering
with
a lot.
what, Essence of Might on it?
Yeah.
I just played it in just 5 damage or something.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go.
It's good. It's good. A lot of reach.
Here's your shrine's taking 5.
All right. Shaman the Gale. This is one of my favorite cards.
Shaman the Gale. This card actually is not like any other one that we've really seen. This damage scales off the cards in your hand. When it enters play, you draw a card, and then also when it enters plays, you can discard any number of cards to deal damage equal an amount of damage to all the units. So if there's just a ton of things that have like 4 HP on the board, you discard 4 cards and blow up their entire side of the board, and you're left with this Shaman the Gale on the board.
This card is so much more reasonable than Hurricane and Heatwave because it hits your other units.
Well, and,
And
it
it scales off. Like, you have to put a really large cost into this, right? Like,
Yes.
discarding
Like,
4
you wanna
cards is
discard
not a joke.
your entire hand.
Yeah.
That's on average your entire hand by the
Yeah,
time you're
yeah,
playing this, like,
exactly.
Turn 5, turn 4.
Agreed.
You know, like, it's like, okay, do I care about my hand to reset the board, or do I need my hand to reset the board?
Yeah.
Or like gain advantage, because like you're losing cards, and your
Right.
opponent still has like the 3, 4, 5 cards they still have in their hand.
Sure.
So.
Very true. Little trebuchet.
Ooh,
At the
I
end
wish
of
this card was
turn,
better.
Deal damage equal to this card's power to target shrine.
I think this card is pretty fine.
It's pretty fine. I don't know. I've seen it a few times, and it kind of maybe it was just the matchups we played, but
Yeah.
it seemed different.
I think you have to be careful with it because you don't want to make
you
it
don't
too
wanna
good,
overpower
because
it,
there's
yeah.
like Trapmaster and
Yep.
cards like that can really make
Just
this get out of
scale it
control.
out,
Yeah.
You know, just another thing based on effects on the board or essences.
Yep.
Targeted strike. This one pure based on the power of the unit you are targeting. Target unit you control deals damage equal to its power to target enemy unit. So if you have a 5 power guy in play, it does 5 damage. If you only have 2 power guys in play, it does 2 damage. So
Yeah.
this
feel like
scales
this is the-
wholly off your unit.
I feel like this is the call lightning of the fire.
Oh,
tribe.
absolutely. Same argument. Like, how many fire decks are there that have 0 targeted strikes, right? It's pretty rare. I will do it from time to time. Like, there are fire decks that are not putting a lot of power onto the board, and like adding this to the
you just got a
deck
bunch of,
is
2 power dudes.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, my targeted strike is irrelevant.
And the important thing to notice here is it's not exactly just like deal 2 damage, right? Because there is an interaction where when you play targeted strike, if your opponent responds and kills the guy that you targeted strike has no power to deal. It just ends up doing 0, right? So like in your deck with a bunch of 2 power guys, you have to make you have to kind of ask the question, like, do I want to shock sometimes? Because it won't even always be that, and that's definitely like a question worth asking.
Plenty of cases
Oh,
where
yeah.
You're like, target strike. All right, kill your guy. All
Yeah.
right. All right, now onto the Water Shrine. First time a water unit with stealth enters your combat zone each turn, you may deal 1 damage to target unit.
It's a little more synergy for the incursion plan strategy. Just obviously these cards all kind of work together.
They do. And it's real gross to play a stealth unit, ping off a 2 health minion with incursion plans in your grave, and then you punch in and like
Get the other
free
damage.
kill
Yeah.
a 2 health guy and deal like 3 damage to the enemy shrine.
Agreed. Okay. Warcat's Bane is another epic.
I've been blown out by this card way too many times. I don't want to talk about it.
This card is a
Yeah.
Ram the Gates with 5 speed. Is what this card is.
Yeah.
That leaves armor and Swift Strike in its wake, which can often matter also.
Are menacing.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing that scales off the essences or any kind of effects that make your items have more power.
Yeah. And then the last one that I forgot in the first batch, so I'll just pull it up here real quick.
Very reminiscent of the Water Shrine, but if you play a Darkness card as your first action turn, deal 1 damage to all enemy structures.
Right. So slightly different trigger condition. Obviously, it suits more into the dark section of things.
But same like on-brand theme, right? Like,
yeah.
Water's got, you play your first stealth card, Dark has, you play your first dark card, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Same common core.
I was playing a game against Mikey like last week, and I had out, I think it was double Pillory and something else, and he took initiative and just went Secrets in the Dark, your favorite card,
Hate that card.
any other play, and procced this thing twice in one turn, and just wrathed all my Pillories, and I just like picked up my cards. I was like, oh, I just lose. Like, this is the moment you've been waiting for, to just like kill everything.
This is all structures, by the way.
Yeah, that's the thing, is if your opponent is playing
You
the
have
like
4 guard shacks.
Yeah.
They're all taking 1 damage.
Yep.
So
This is actually, I think, an important piece of the like quote unquote metagame, is the fact that you can't just build the like hide behind 20 structures deck, because sometimes you're gonna run into this card, and this card's gonna be like, oh, I get to deal 20 damage, aka 1 to all of your things, like every time I trigger this. Like, yeah, it's just really strong.
And for those who don't remember, Ken referenced Secrets in the Dark. That is a 1 dark dark event that gives you 2 additional actions if you play it as your first action.
Yeah.
2 additional
good
first actions of the turn.
Right, very important, because we want
So
we want them to.
theoretically, if you play Secrets in the Dark first, you do 1 damage to everything, and then you get 2 more first actions. So you could theoretically do 3 damage before your opponent has an action.
I'm gonna pull this up. I've separated the cards into groups that deal damage to structures and groups that deal damage to units. And I want to.
I think we should have grouped them differently.
Go ahead, Kathy. What was that, Kathy?
Did you had like Flash Warcats main for a second? Did you mean to not show that one?
We showed it.
Oh, sorry.
We can
we
run it down one more time. Do you want to read it, Kathy?
Oh God, why?
No,
AJ really hates this card, so we tried to do it quickly.
I just saw it like flash by. I didn't know that we were talking
We
about
referenced it because we talked about armor and switch. Man, all right, Kathy.
It's okay.
I won't drag
those-
it on.
For those who don't know, for all those on YouTube and in this
No,
call,
no, leave her be.
Kathy doesn't listen 65% of the time.
It's true.
That's generous. I think we're all being very generous right now.
We are. Only because this is going on the internet.
Okay.
I thought we should probably group this in things that scale based off like other like essences and stuff versus not.
Sure. I mean, we can
But
start to
fine.
figure that out.
It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. Like, because of things like Raising Essence, like when you're talking structure damage, they basically all scale, right?
That's fair.
So-
Just real quick.
Yeah, I'll actually pull up a quick. This is actually an essence that's going to be pretty heavily discussed tonight, because we're talking specifically about damage. So this is an essence that, yes, it's a special essence. It's a playset in your deck. You only get 3 copies of it. But when you're playing any deck that's utilizing these direct damage cards, even if you're not heavily into fire, right? This is the thing that is maybe a little bit missed on this essence, is it's only a 2 CCC, so it's very easy to sneak into a deck even if you're not a heavy fire commitment in your deck. And it just gives you a lot of reach. It gives you a lot of ability to just deal damage to the shrine, close out games when you get in the right situation. It makes some cards, in my opinion, like a little kind of brain dead almost. Like it's like, oh, Raising Essence exists, therefore I need to fit a card in my deck that's definitely going to take Raising Essence. And there are essences that are so strong that like you look at them and you're like, okay, I need this essence in my deck. What card can it go on? Raising Essence is like so good that you just don't even care which card it goes on. And I don't necessarily think that that's a huge problem with Raising Essence. One of the sort of sub notes that I have to myself is that Fire Essences are a little boring. A lot of them do very similar things. They're not super like interactive or interesting. So I like that Raising Essence does kind of push the envelope a little bit on like what a Fire Essence can do. But it needs to be a focal point when looking at these cards, right? When considering, how much damage a card can do, how easy it is for that card to do that damage. You have to keep this in mind, right? So again, for everybody who's kind of like going to pay attention to this overall analysis, this is a very important card when it comes to the overall like shaping of what cards can be what. Just kind of have that in your back pocket, I guess. And I think I actually pulled up the wrong stack. Yeah, I wanted to start with this one. So, with Raising Essence fresh in your mind, I've taken all the cards that, like I said, deal damage to structures and all the cards that deal damage to units. And I've got kind of like a separate sort of same images we just saw, but I want to kind of start comparing them to each other a little bit and like look at how many of them do, like I guess basically what AJ just said, like how many of them scale, how many of them don't scale, how many of them kind of require Raising Essence to be like at their best, that type of thing. And I'm actually going to really quickly.
Man, I'm so good at this.
Say copy that. Okay. Open this in a new window. Okay. So here's actually a better list, so we can at least see them all. Can we go extra large icons? Boom. So we just saw all these cards, so this will actually give us a little bit of a look at like which of these cards. I mean, if you can kind of remember. I'll click on them if we're having a topic discussion about any of them individually.
I'll just read through them real fast so people know what's in this group.
Sure.
So this is the structure group. We got Arsonist, Blade Warrior, Earthquake, Firebomb, Firestarter, Hall of Shadows, Ram the Gates, Rubain, Siege, Trebuchet, and Warcat's Mane.
Perfect. Yep. So right off the rip, I think the most important thing to notice about this group of cards is that literally every single one of them can legally take Raising Essence. So when you read every single one of these cards, you have to automatically think to yourself, is this okay if it will just like, quote unquote, always do +2 damage, right? Because again, if I'm playing a deck that has, the access to a Raising Essence, which should be basically any deck that's playing cards like this. I mean, it doesn't even really have to play fire. I will literally play Earthquake with Raising Essence and just deal 5, right? Like that's not completely unreasonable.
The minute you put a structure card in your deck, or deal damage structure card, it's like, all right, does this get raising or not?
Exactly. And that's kind of part of the point. Is it's like, okay, if I'm playing 3 of the cards from this list in my deck, only one of them is going to get Raising Essence. So like I'm technically only getting that buff like once. But if I'm playing only one of these cards in my deck, if I just decide to just play Arsonist or just play Firebomb, or if I've just got one in there, it's so free to just add Raising Essence and just make it like super strong.
So I mean, like within this group, there's multiple cards in here that like the +2 damage from Raising Essence is kind of like theoretically irrelevant for the ones that are that scale off power.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these take like Rubain, Blade Warrior, Arsonist, even Ram the Gates, and all of them could theoretically take any other
even
power
can
essence.
take some extra power. Yeah.
All those can theoretically scale not off Raising Essence. So like theoretically, when you put your deck together, you're like, oh, I'll put Essence of Might on my Arsonist. It does 4 damage. Now my Raising Essence can go on Firebomb or
I mean,
something.
Might can technically only fit on Rubain and Warcat's Mane inside of this list.
All right, yeah, but
I mean, you could put Pure Fire on it, and that'll increase its damage by 2. You can do there are other options.
Doesn't the dual Fire Dark add a power?
It does. The one that adds a cost and adds a fire. Yeah.
So theoretically, Arsonist can be 5 mana, 4 power.
5 mana, 4 damage. Yep. Or 5. Yeah, 5 costs. That'll deal. And then don't forget about Throne Room.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Throne Room, for those who don't know, if it adds power to all your guys if they have 5 mana or more.
Yeah, 5 costs gain +1 power, and it's a continuous effect, so it happens.
So theoretically,
with the enters,
Arsonist can get up to 5 with other build-arounds that doesn't need raising.
Yeah.
Where like things like Earthquake, Firebomb, Firestarter, like without raising essence, they kind of don't scale that much. Like Firestarter will always do 1 unless it has raising, then it'll do 3. But only 3 to the shrine though, not 3 to like a guard check.
What were you saying, Kathy?
The Rubain would get up to 6.
Rubain can have 6 damage, yes. Yep. With an Essence of Might and a Throne Room, he can do 6 on enters.
That is a lot of build around though.
Yeah, so. Yeah. You're investing,
which I think is fine. You're investing what, 2 cards total? Your Essence of Might.
You're investing Essence of Might, which is one of the premier essences in Fire. Yep. You're playing Throne Room as your Shrine Improvement, which technically does nothing until turn 5. You're playing a 3-color deck already. Like you're jumping through an awful many hoops to get that.
It can't even happen until turn 7.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like.
Yeah, that's also true.
Rubain,
Rubain costs 5, but if you play him on turn 5, you didn't play him as first action because you didn't have a resource. So yeah, it's
turn 6.
Yeah,
is the first time you could Rubain for 6, which is I think is fine. That's a lot of build around to do something like that.
Rubain himself is in the chat right now, and I have definitely been playing plenty of games with him across all of history, where I'm just like, all right, well, if he ever draws, the namesake Rubain, I'm just dead. I know he's gonna be doing at least like 5 damage with that thing. He's aggroed me down. I'm at 5 or I'm at 4 or I'm at 3 or whatever it is. I'm like, if he draws that card, I'm just gonna die. Definitely happens.
So like it's fine. Like I think like theoretically, like to me, Arsonist and Rubain can just like even Blade Warrior, I think are just like 3 cards that if you want them to like deal a ton of damage, like you gotta invest a good bit of like build around.
Yeah.
And so like them, I'm like, yeah, sure they scale, but like you gotta invest a lot to scale them.
Yeah.
So to me, those 3 are just irrelevant in the grand scheme of this conversation.
Yeah,
like,
I'm
sure,
actually
they can do a lot of damage, but yeah.
As far as like an editor's note on the 5 cards that scale off power that I've got highlighted here: Arsonist, Ram the Gates, Rubain, Siege Trebuchet, and Warcat's Mane. I'm pretty comfortable with all of them. None of them have stood out in playtesting. None of them have felt overwhelming or underwhelming. They're cards that you should be respecting. I mean, if you're playing the fire aggro deck, like you're going to expect that they have some Ram the Gates. They could have Siege Trebuchets. You have to understand the dynamics of what they can do on these certain turns. If you're playing against a dark fire aggressively slanted deck, you're going to want to pay attention to Arsonist and or Rubain and know that like losing initiative doesn't just mean your opponent's going first. It might just mean that they're playing a large nuke to start a given turn and hit you with some direct damage.
Here's my 4 HP, 4 power, 4 speed guy who's also dealing 4 damage to you as soon as he enters the battlefield.
Yeah, exactly. Just a giant beat stick. And I think, like I said, I think that those 5 have actually behaved themselves. I think that they've actually been quite good. You'll notice that they're all like fire/dark cards. I mean, most of this list is fire dark cards, honestly. A little bit of air mixed in, and then this one strange sticks out like
color pie.
Out like a green thumb.
Yeah. I'm gonna ban him from Discord.
Yeah, go ahead. But I'm gonna actually go ahead and I'm gonna just kind of delete these 5 from the list and say, let's talk about these that don't scale. And I've had this discussion with a couple people already, like prior to this week, and I think 2 of these are off for power level, and one of them is off for color pie potentially.
I think I know the color pie one.
Yeah. And we can start there. Like I'll pull up I'll pull up Earthquake. This card is super thematic. It's like the effect is an earthquake. Like when you read that, you're like, this is what would happen. People would be hiding under tables if they weren't super strong, and everything that is like firmly attached to the ground is gonna take a beating, right? Like that is clearly what this card does.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 trains of thought with this card off rip from what we've been talking about, right? Like the raising essence on this versus not raising.
Sure.
So like if you put raising on this is theoretically a 4-mana deal 5 to the shrine plus 3 to all other structures.
Yeah.
But then you won't get the added effect of exhausting all units with power less than this, less than the number of cards in your resource zone. So it's like a huge build around there too. It is kind of weird to see it in Earth though, because like the exhaust thing is like an air thing, but the resource thing's the Earth thing, and then obviously as we can see through everything else, the deal 3 damage to the structures is dark fire.
Right.
Much.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. When you look at the color pie, the damage to structures is a very dark fire like shared thing, right? Dark doesn't even have a ton of it. Like they've got it. They're like the supporting cast. Obviously, fire is the. I mean, you saw the list. Like fire is the main. You know.
I mean, all 5 of those cards you deleted.
Yeah.
All fire based.
Exactly.
And only 2 of them had a dark splash.
Yep. So like I mean, as far as that damage goes, I mean, let's just open the floor. Like Cathy, anybody who's watching inside Discord right now, AJ, any if Earthquake were going to be a card, if I said I want to have a card in Flawed that feels like an Earthquake, but also really, really, really feels like an Earth card, what can you change on this card that makes that make sense?
Are you just saying that the deal damage?
I think that the deal damage.
I think the deal damage makes the most sense for an Earthquake.
It does, but I think that it makes the least sense inside of the color pie. Yeah. And I think that the exhaust. I think that the exhaust is also challenging. But yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask this as an outsider to the editor. Why? Why does green need this? Why did you, when you made this, just because it's why did you think that Earth needed this card? This random one off the color pie of set 1.
So I'll explain to you the design thought. Number one, it's kind of like a top-down design. I definitely started with the word Earthquake and said, what does an Earthquake do? That was kind of where it came from, right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
And I don't know that I had damage right away, but I know that the idea that
Exhaust.
The more Earth you had before you, the more effect you would get out of it was somewhere that I wanted to land, right? So the idea that I have a bunch of resources, that's where the Earthquake is playing out. That's almost like what scale your Earthquake is, right? And we landed on this type of an effect where smaller guys get exhausted. If you're bigger, you can maybe stand up to the strength of the current Earthquake.
Do exactly what we were talking about in the movies today. Driving your car
just
through an Earth engine
bunny
event,
hopping through the craters. Yeah,
craters on your car.
Here's what happened though. Here's what happened. I'm gonna say one last thing because this is what actually answers your question. Okay, I loved the bottom effect. I was like, this is perfect.
Yep.
What ended up happening was the early sort of version of this card may not even have done damage right away, if I'm being honest. I think it actually scaled. I think it had something completely different on it. I might see if I can dig up an old file. The problem with the card, the way that it started, was not the way that it started, but if you build a card that focuses heavily on the exhaust effect and the scaling with your resource zone, what you end up with is an insanely powerful, brick your entire turn type card for controlling strategies. And this is going to sound weird, but by adding 3 damage to all structures, 2 things happen. Number one, it becomes a viable card to play in less controlling strategies because now I can use it as reach in my mid-range decks, right? I can play ramp strategies where I'm dropping big guys that survive the exhaustion, and I'm not control, but I'm doing something a little bit different where I'm leveraging on that bottom effect, but because I'm tapping your guys and not my guys, that 3 damage gives me more of an alpha strike, right? Well, I'm saying if my guys are bigger than the resource zone, I'm saying if I'm playing big guys. You get what I'm saying? So what ended up happening? Griffin always swings through Earthquake. Yeah, it's actually super sick. Yeah.
Just realized that.
So what ended up happening was because the bottom effect was
probably because Griffin caused the Earthquake.
That's right. He just took a couple steps. Big lad.
You'll see in set 2 who really causes Earthquake.
Because the bottom effect was so good in isolation in control decks, dealing 3 damage to all structures makes the control decks pay 3 life to play this card.
Yep.
Which is actually the exact level of balance that I felt it needed to have that bottom effect be as good as it was, while also opening the card up to be played in multiple strategies. So I think the card is awesome for what it's worth. I just think that it's not an Earth card.
What if, hear me out, this is how we make it more of an Earth card. So Earthquake, right? When earthquakes happen, what happens to the land? Some of the land gets destroyed, right?
Okay. Don't like where this is going.
I love where this is going. What if you had to sack off some number of resources for the damage?
I just think that the control decks never do it, right? I think that you're giving them the opportunity to not have to take the damage and exhaust the entire enemy's board.
And your board.
True, but who cares? Their board was guard checks and stuff. Random defensive units that weren't trying to attack anyway.
What if you just had a mandatory sack 2 resources?
I don't know. I think so. There's nothing that really makes you do that.
It's an earthquake.
We've really. I know. I understand. We've stayed away from the resource zone up to this point, and I kind of like that a lot. I think that in other games, 2 of the most unfun mechanics are resource denial and discard. When you can stop your opponent from just.
Says the man who loves Armageddon.
I like Armageddon that costs 7 loyalty. It's different. Yeah, when you stop your opponent from playing the game at all, that just leads to really negative play experience and like non-interactive games, right? Like and I understand that this is like a self-inflicted sacrifice is what you're suggesting, but you're just opening a can of worms that I'm like not super interested in.
I'm interested. Listen, Earth's got all the ramp anyways. They can stack off some extra resources.
I mean, I'm not saying that it wouldn't make the card like. Here's the other side note. Here's the other
top down. You had the word earthquake and
yeah.
design, and I think you missed the most important part of the word earthquake.
Well, you keep thinking that resources are lands. Let's get that out of the way.
I keep saying resources.
I know, but
Same concept.
it's true. The a really important caveat about this discussion on earthquake is that I think the card is great. I think it's well positioned. I think it's a perfectly reasonable card inside of set one flawed format, except for the fact that it's a green card. The fact that it is earth for everything that it does, it just doesn't quite sit right with me. I don't know.
Does Earth have another way to deal with structures right now?
No, not inside of set one.
Not in set one. No.
I feel like it would need something. It's definitely less powerful, but what if you changed it to like that it rests all non-shrine structures or exhausts them?
Okay, that's an interesting piece of feedback. Zoltan says, for me, I think it's fine if it stays a little bit out of the color identity. The cool factor is worth it.
I like that.
I mean,
definitely agree.
This card is an earthquake. Like, what it does is what an earthquake does.
I actually have the perfect solution for this.
Okay.
We take it out of set one.
Move it to Fire Earth inside of set two?
Yes.
Ew.
I mean...
It fits more systematically in set two. I'm glad you knew where I was going with this.
Yeah, that was not that hard to... Let me take a quick
Definitely like Zoltan. I'm not
because like I'm with having this card in right, but I'm not with having this in set one where it does just like if you as a new person pick up this card, everyone's just gonna look at this and go, "What? This makes no sense."
Yeah.
Within set one design, play strategies, themes, like it is off the wall in set one. If this was a set two card, I have no questions for it.
I don't disagree with that generic evaluation.
I mean, we already moved one card from set one to set two.
Oh,
for the exact same reason.
Moving, yeah. Well, it was slightly different. It didn't have the tribal support. That's a little bit more harsh than this because you want to talk about getting confused. Oh, I opened Cat Rider and there literally isn't a cat printed yet.
Spoilers.
Like that's gonna very very much confuse people.
Well, now they know there's a card called Cat Rider.
That's fine. I think we've mentioned Cat Rider a couple times on the stream before.
I think we have to.
Actually, it was my very first Patreon post before we knew we were moving it.
Yep.
I was like, what should we do with Cat Rider? I'm so confused.
I know.
Very quick, because you just mentioned moving it to set two. I just want to. You'll know these cards. Obviously, the people on stream aren't going to know them as much, but right now, and I plan on keeping it at 3 multicolor cards per color combination per set for this first series. So right now, the Fire Earth cards inside of set two are Breaking Wave, Crazed Knight, and the Strong Survive. I cannot imagine getting rid of any of those or making any of those monocolored.
Well, I'm not saying you have to make this a dual color. I was just saying leave it as is, put it in set two.
Okay.
I wasn't saying make this
two
colorless Earth Fire. I was just saying take this entire card and put it in set two.
Okay.
Because then you can argue this is the pure Earth guys who saw the way of the fire and were like, oh yeah, baby, I want some of that.
No, okay.
Earthquake.
I think we'll close on Earthquake with that. I've been making some little notes on the side, and I just wrote down Earthquake : set 2 ?
2 ?
Yeah. Yep. So
or tap structures ?
I actually don't hate that either. Possibly, I mean, I don't hate that. We'll consider /
Like Avery, I'm not so hung up on something squeaking outside of its color wheel. That doesn't really upset me that much.
Yeah,
me either. But I think just set one purposes and stuff like that, and getting it to the world, I think it just makes more sense to like leave set 1 as like, here's the colored pie, where set 1's gonna stay like this,
Mm-hmm.
and then introduce everything else in like set 2 and forward.
Yeah,
Right? I think it's just the easiest way for like new things to be introduced, or else it's just like, well, this makes no sense.
I think I agree
That's
with
scary.
that as a fundamental, but I don't know that it
Yes.
needs to be adhered to 100%. I know that it needs to be
Right,
like a
I don't think so
steadfast
either,
rule.
but,
Yeah.
But it's yeah.
Real quick, I just want to touch on 2 more here, and then I actually want to get into the power level on 2 of these cards. I think this is going to be a pretty big talk that we're about to have. But Firebomb and Hall of Shadows, these 2 right here, I'm actually really happy with both of them.
I only hate the second one when Secrets in the Dark Side.
These 2 cards actually do the same thing if you read them, right? It's like 1 damage to all structures is kind of like a very similar effect. And I'm comfortable with them both existing.
Isn't Firebomb also units?
It is, yeah. Firebomb is honestly a bit of a like outlier inside of Fire Color Pie, because Fire Color Pie doesn't have a ton of unit direct damage. Like, they've got targeted strike, yes, but that's more meant to say I've got a big guy in play and he's gonna punch you, right? Like, I'm gonna hit you real hard.
I have an aggressor.
Yeah.
He's coming in.
So it is a little bit outside of the color pie also, but like as we just said, it's another card that just makes a lot of sense, right? You've just exploded like an old school clay pot bomb in the middle of everybody or whatever, and it's just everybody's getting hit. You know, you're not safe from it, and I'm happy with those 2 cards. As a side note, Hall of Shadows obviously can't take Raising Essence, so there's no like power level issue there.
Well, my shrine can't take an essence.
Firebomb can take it, but I'm actually like fine with that. You know,
I mean, Firebomb. I've played against Firebomb the most with the Raising Essence.
Yeah, it's very common to use.
Yeah, and it's fine because like the other thing in Fire is like a lot of your guys also don't have that much health.
Wait,
for the most part.
Oh, I've just minimized too many things. What have I done? Wait.
But I'm saying like your early aggression guys, like it's 2 HP, 3 HP, like kind of like relatively like small numbers, right? And like so Firebomb theoretically can hurt you too. Like they make
like this guy, for instance.
Yeah, like that guy just instant dies a Firebomb
instantly.
You know, so like Firebomb's fine because like for Fire decks to really maximize Firebomb, they kind of have to give up parts of their own board.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that like really like I'm gonna say unique aggro deck that I built back in the 3-set meta like 6 months ago with like all the barbarians and warriors in it.
Yeah.
I have played Firebombs and killed off like 4 of my own guys in that deck at times because it's just like
I've literally seen him go Blade Warrior, Firebomb, and he lost his entire board.
But it was like just the right play.
Yeah.
Because the Blade Warriors had already dealt damage or like chipped down some of your guys or whatever. It's just you know, you got to make those choices. But I think I'm happy with both of those.
Firebomb's good to me because maybe you put Raising, deal 3 damage to any shrine, but like you're giving up a lot for that. It's not like Ram the Gates where it's just direct damage to the enemy shrine. You know, it's like I have to give up.
If you're playing the really breakneck aggressive decks with Makiri Ravine, the 1 damage on your own shrine just starts mattering because you only have 17 HP to start. Yeah.
Yeah, you've taken a couple chip shots from something and you're like, oh no.
Yeah. So here's the first guy I want to talk about for power level wise. This card doesn't get played.
I think it only doesn't get played because we're playing set 1 format only.
I mean,
because there's a card in what, set 3?
Oh sure, there become
has the same effect.
Higher. Oh,
is it set 2 or set 3? Is she set 2 or set 3?
She's set 3.
Set 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she gets played a lot. And,
right. The difference being that she's a
correct.
3 cost with like way many other abilities, better stat line, and in a color that cares about that effect more. More importantly, she actually doesn't have. She has the bottom effect. She doesn't have the top effect. You just think she does because people play pure on her so often.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that this guy is overcost. I think that 4 is too much.
I think, but
Absolutely.
yeah, I think putting him at 3 though is kind of weird in dark decks because of
I think that when you put these 2 cards side by side, you're like,
of 3.
Why in the
I mean, one's
world
obviously way stronger.
do I want to pay
as,
4
like,
for Firestarter?
Yeah, I think put him at 3 though. You start getting into a lot of deck constriction unless you just want to play like 18 3-drops in your dark deck.
Yeah, maybe.
You got counterintelligence agent, opportunist.
Counterintelligence agent is so rarely a 4 or a 3 cost play though, right? Like a lot of times you have to set him up with the other stealth effect.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess he's really a 4-mana guy in disguise.
Yeah, unless you're specifically playing the like stealth mirror or whatever.
Yeah, I've been a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun. I mean, it's not bad. It does feel a little overstated.
I think it's understated right now.
Or I'm sorry. That's what
Yeah.
I meant overcosted.
Yeah.
Like
I think when you look at these two cards side by side, Arsonist and Firestarter, it really stands out that Firestarter is just like, I wish I was as good as you. Like,
well, but that makes sense, right? Because his name's Firestarter.
Obviously, he's
learning the way
to become an arsonist. Yeah.
Yeah, an arsonist is already like all the way in there. Like, man's got 6 flamethrowers in his shed, just like ready to go to town, and like Firestarter's like, I bought this lighter for $1.
So I have this open on my InDesign right now. I've already
He's ready to change it.
It's already kind of been getting worked over a little bit.
I don't like the
3 black.
Yeah, dark.
I was thinking you would make it like 2 colorless, a darkness, and then like decreases health by 1.
All valid options. I'm not saying that this is locked in by any means. I'm a little worried that if you mess with him too much, he just starts to look way too much like a fire card, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Being firebound and so on and so forth. That's why I kind of wanted to keep him triple dark, or at least a semi-heavy commitment to dark, so that you know that you're playing a dark deck. You know you're playing a dark card, and that's a weird like thing to say, but
we're back on the systematic stuff, and all right.
I mean, I think that the cards feeling like they make sense is important. I think that having, like, the Firestarter may have some...
Explain set 4. Don't come at me with that logic.
I can explain it in one word. Untested.
Jay just loves talking about every set except set 1.
I'm telling you, we're trying to have a... yeah. Caw. Oh, excuse me.
What if...
I definitely agree that his name should change.
His name should change.
Oh, what do you mean agree?
Isn't that what you were
talking
saying?
about a name change? No.
Because you were talking about Arsonist just like all in there, and Firestarter's just learning the ways.
Cathy.
That was flavor. We were trying to thematically explain how the Firestarter is the up-and-coming arsonist, the new kid on the street.
What I'm saying is that the name combined with the Firebound.
Okay.
Like you said, it feels like the only reason he's darkness is because you threw 3 darkness symbols in the top corner.
I mean, is that not enough?
I'm suggesting maybe not.
Baseline. Can we all agree that this should probably be a 3-cost card?
I think so, yeah.
Is there a... Let's do this. Is there like a... Is there a 4-cost version that can ever make sense next to Arsonist with all these bound effects and like the different benefits that the Arsonist has?
Yes.
It's a pretty loaded question.
Make him a 3/3/3.
That's big.
3 Leave him at 4 and make him 3/3/3.
3 speed was like
Speed is nuts.
that was old Arsonist was like gained a speed from one of its bounds like a long time ago, and it was too strong. Like having a very powerful enters effect and being like S tier in combat because you're fast and powerful and have decent HP was like too much on one card.
What if you...
Oh, Ruben's actually asking a really good question. How many 3-cost cards are there in Dark inside of set 1?
I know of at least 2.
Let's see.
The 2 I stated.
Let's see. So it's counterintelligence agent.
No, just 2.
Opportunist.
Yeah, it's just 2, right?
It is just 2. I mean, I don't think 3 is too many. I don't think you're like front-loading 3 costs that aggressively at that point. And generically speaking, making a 4 into a 3 just makes all of your cards on average like more playable, right? Like inside of the set, you're just getting more reps, right?
Nah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna make a quick little note for this guy. Name ? 3 cost, probably. And then, I mean, his effects make sense, right? Like, I don't think that the effects really need to change. I think that it's a numbers crunch on this guy.
Man, I wish I had access to set 3 files so I can
Set
read a
3
card.
files? What?
Yeah, I just wanted to read the other card that does pseudo.
Oh, you want to know?
Yeah.
So it's 4 HP, 3 power, 2 speed.
Is the effect? I wanted to read the effect if the effect was worded the same.
The effect is exactly the same, except for it
so,
doesn't
right?
require Firebound.
Right. Okay, that's why I wanted to double check.
And then it has 4 more lines of text on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I know it does. I just wanted to read if the wording on the effect was the exact same.
Yeah, it is.
That's all. Okay,
Yep.
okay.
It's end of turn. Is that what you're hung up on?
Yeah. I couldn't remember if it did it instantly or end of turn.
Yeah, no. None of the structure destruction is instant except for I think sabotage.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that this guy definitely could see some improvements, and I'm up for investigating him as a 4 cost or 3 cost. But I think that you just don't. I don't want Firestarter and Arsonist to just look like the same card, right? And
What if he was not an enters effect? But attacks as a first action effect.
That's a really interesting suggestion. I can get behind that.
Right? Because like opportunist, knife expert, ruffian, right? You got
absolutely.
Units in set 1 that all are reliant, like their effects all are reliant on the first attack.
True.
And maybe like leave him at 4 then if you change it like that, because then like that's a super powerful effect on him 4. That if you want to use your first action,
if he can do it repeatedly, you're getting 1 point of direct damage, even just against the shrine each turn, right? It's effectively a 1 power boost.
I think if you do that, like leaving him at 4 and maybe
it's
giving him,
actually
like, extra power, I think makes him reasonable.
There's actually
and then the name change for Cathy would make sense.
Comically, your suggestion is probably going to die on impact because of what we're about to talk about with Blade Warrior. And I'll explain my thinking in just now, okay? Blade Warrior. Here it is. This card is super strong. It is the linchpin of the fire air aggro deck. Gets you coming in, gets you going out. This guy's got awesome stat line for a 2-cost unit. Fairly relevant unit type.
Ignore the 1 HP.
I mean, the 1 HP, we actually talked about this.
Yeah,
there are so few ways to do exactly 1 point of direct damage to a unit in this.
Well, that's why I was saying ignore the 1 HP. Like, I was going to say it's not that relevant before you cut me off.
I think there are, sorry for cutting you off. I think that there are, I think there's exactly 4 cards that can do 1 damage to a unit. And we saw most of them tonight. It's like Incursion Plans, Unseen City, Firebomb, and Blade Warrior himself are the answers to Blade Warrior. Otherwise, you're just burning a Call Lightning, which would have killed him anyway.
Or Firebomb.
I said Firebomb.
Yeah, but...
Oh, okay. Yeah. My own Firebomb.
Yeah.
So here's exactly what I'm worried about by turning Firestarter into an on-attack trigger, right?
Yeah.
Blade Warrior is the most insane card with Raising Essence because you play it and it gets +2 damage, and then you attack and it gets +2 damage.
Yeah.
And it happens so quickly and so consistently, especially in your Makiri Ravine decks. This guy is, I think I mentioned earlier in the stream that
6 damage instantly.
Oh, no, he's 8 damage instantly.
Oh, yeah, true.
Check your math on that one.
It's 5, yeah, it's 5.
When we're playing Makiri Ravine, you just jam this guy on your second action of turn 2, get a bonus action, attack, and they've taken 8 from your 2-cost card on turn 2. And it's oh, I do too. I think I know where this is going, where I want this one to go.
CCC on Firestarter. But anyways.
Oh, I don't know about that. Maybe he could be a 6, but we'll see.
Just so he doesn't get raising. That's it.
We'll see. I don't know if that's a better or worse change, but that's definitely.
Well, if you make the on attack effect, I think you just take raising, or you just not allow him to take raising. Is all.
Yeah, I was
something to keep in mind with the notes you're writing as well.
For sure. I mentioned at the start of the stream that like some cards with Raising Essence are like kind of brain dead, and you're just like, oh well, duh. Of course I'm gonna play Raising Essence on this and just murder people. No, this is the one that I think is a little bit too good, Ruben. Yeah, Firestarter was the one that was not good enough. We've addressed that. So here's the debate on this one, and I've actually talked about with multiple people, and I'm just going to lay it out real quick. I think that Blade Warrior is played in one of two ways. It's either going to get any given air essence to give it +1 speed, so that it has 3 power and 3 speed, and basically dominates combat on turn 2. There's very little that stands up to 3 power and 3 speed. You're getting a trade or an outright kill always, right?
Yep.
And that's going to be, you know, a large portion of Blade Warriors are going to take any given air essence, whether it's clouded or pure air or just infused air or whatever. They're just going to add a speed to it, right?
Yeah.
Or what we just talked about, which is very specifically Raising Essence, and you're just trying to cheese somebody to get 8 damage. You will almost never see a dual essence on this. I have seen one time, I think somebody cranked it up to a 3 cost for a like, maybe it was, I don't even remember. I think I've seen it once. You'll also almost never see a Fire Essence on this, right? Because 4 power 2 speed just doesn't play as well as 3 power 3 speed on the early turns. You're just losing to like 1-drops, right? Yep. In combat. So that sort of basic philosophy, combined with the fact that when you read this card from top to bottom, this card just screams fire, right? Like enters play, has a nuke effect, high power, right? It's an aggro card, 2 cost. Like everything on this card is fire slanted. And this is kind of like a little bit of a cheesy fix, but again, I've got this actually open already on my end design. You get to get 2 birds with 1 stone. Number 1, you get to say no more Raising Essence, and number 2, you get to make the card actually feel like an air card. And I've added airlocked.
Wow. That must have taken a long time to edit.
It was tough. What was that, Cathy?
I just said interesting.
Yeah.
I was like brainstorming in
we
my
talked
head.
about this a little bit tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you saying,
I was
Cathy?
brainstorming in my head. I didn't come up with that. And then when you showed me, I was like, oh, seems obvious.
It's really simple, but I don't mind it being simple on a 2 cost card, right? Like, you still get the option of, okay, do I want to play Clouded? Do I want to play Pure? Do I want to play Infused? I mean, if you really want to get wild with it, you can add one of those like +1 cost essences and manipulate his stats in different ways, right?
Because in my head, I was thinking like, oh, you can just like ban certain essence combos, but it just makes more sense.
Yeah, just let it be released. Let it be released straight away, and like, I think that now when you look at this card, it feels more like it's
now
2 colors.
It feels much more multicolored.
Exactly.
Not just a red card that you put an air essence on. I like it.
Yeah, Ruben just said Ruben says this card dies to every 1-drop in the game if you don't put a speed on it, which is true.
That's true, but I don't think that's not exactly the issue I think Kenny was getting at.
The issue is that some
issue is 8 damage turn 2 when I'm on 1 resource.
Some players are just being degenerate and saying, who cares? If my guy dies to a 1-drop in like some number of games, that stinks.
Whatever.
But like in other games, I'm just gonna play this guy. They're not gonna have anything to play on turn 1 or turn 2, and I just win. The game's basically just over.
Let's stop playing control then. What do you mean stop playing control? If you miss a 1-drop in your aggro deck, this card on turn 2 goes 8 damage.
Ruben,
and then you're able to play your 2-drop.
Ruben, comically, we actually played Fire Dark aggro versus Fire Air aggro like not that long ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and this card was the card that like led to like the fastest like 45-second game where one aggro deck just didn't curve out. Yeah, one aggro deck didn't curve out and the other one did, and it was just like, you are dead.
So it's not the matter of playing control versus not playing control. It's like, if I miss anything on turn 1, I take 8 damage from this card.
Imagine just put it into perspective. Like, imagine you're playing aggro mirror or aggro matchup. It doesn't have to be the exact same deck. I play a 1-drop, you don't. I now have initiative. We go into turn 2. I resource, you resource, and I'm just like Blade Warrior, Trigger McCure Ravine, 8 you.
You probably took 3 or 2 the previous turn.
That's what I'm saying. And then
11 damage for missing a 1-drop.
Yeah, and then you're like, okay, now I play my 2-drop. Oh, I'm at 6. I'm dead.
And then it just goes ram the gates, kill you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt. It's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, again, it's a pretty blunt, like, approach to this card. Like, I think that this is, aga This card's not dead after the set. This card is actually
definitely not dead after the set.
This card is.
I was getting my first games ever were against this card,
Yeah.
and like I was getting stomped in the set 3 format where we had set 1, 2, and 3 with this card.
This card's never going to be completely dead because its unit type is warrior, and Sparring Ring is a hell of a drug. Yeah, that Shrine Improvement is very strong.
Yeah. So no, this card is definitely not dead after set 1.
Yeah, I mean, might not be your flavor anymore, Ruben, but I think that this card is.
Insane.
I think this card's really good. I think that a 2 cost with 3 power and 3 speed is like great. It's very, very strong.
Does not get killed by a whole lot, or
yeah,
even against opposing 1-drops.
So that's everything on this package.
Yep. Next package.
Let me pull up
Bring me my
the
next
other
Amazon
folder.
I'm waiting on one myself.
Okay, so it's this guy. Excuse me.
And do you remember when I had to used to use my one of my premier 1-drop draw spells just to kill this card?
Why did he shrink down? I had him as extra large. There we go.
Yeah. Oh, look, he's back.
Yeah, we were playing that matchup, and you had 4 damage call lightnings, and you were throwing 4 damage call lightnings at Blade Warrior.
Yeah, and then I added the one air event.
Yep.
Just to deal 1 damage.
Yep.
Because I was tired of just getting slapped.
Agreed.
I was like, nah, I'm getting out of this.
So we've already talked a lot about Blade Warrior. We could probably not focus on him too much. Believe it or not, we were focusing on structure damage. This thing can hit units too, which I guess is the one saving grace about why it's an air fire card and not just fire. And sometimes that really matters, right? Like they just have like a 4 HP guy.
Blade Warriors.
Yeah, and that. But that's, I mean, we don't have to like super focus on that. I guess let's see. So
Call Lightning. It's a great one to go on.
Call Lightning, Targeted Strike. These are like your one shot, like just hit for some damage. We already talked a little bit about Targeted Strike, about how it does have some risk factors involved. Yeah. Which is part of why it's like so quote unquote efficient at only 1 cost.
Yeah, and Call Lightning is just like your premier removal spell.
Yeah.
It happens in every game ever. There's always that one that you're
damage based,
I need this damage based removal that just every card game needs to exist.
Yeah.
This card is hard to get away from ever if you ever play any kind of air.
Yeah, this is like version
does all kinds of things for you in your deck.
This is version X of this card. I definitely changed the numbers and tweaked a lot of things on this a number of times. But I think that this is about as clean as it gets, right? The options are very plentiful. There are so many. I mean, yes, any dual essence is money. Plus 4 speed if you want it to be uncounterable, right? Plus 2 power if you want it to hit harder. The Torrid Essence, you can actually make a 3 cost that hits harder, but not have to invest your Essence of Might, right? Soulful is great on this. Just another way to unlock the bound effect, but also have a good resource play. It just goes on and on and on. Like I've actually played this with Whispering Essence to make it deal 3, draw a card for 3. Like that's not even crazy. All of the random non-basic air essences outside of the duels, right? Like Pure Air, where you like discard a card, tap a guy. Now you've got a one card that lets you handle 2 bodies, kind of simultaneously. Like this card just goes on and on and on what you can do with it. And I think that they're all like super valid. I don't think that it's just like a blatant I'm playing Call Lightning with this essence. You cannot convince me otherwise. There's no possible argument as to why you think it should be this, that, or that. Like, no, there is. There's always a debate. Those are my favorite cards, for the record. If you guys can't tell by how I'm just spouting off, the cards that have a lot of options are the best ones, in my opinion. But yeah, I think that these 2 are in pretty decent spots. Targeted Strike, I mean, we already talked about this a little bit. Yes, it scales off of what you have in play. There's the risk factor of getting your guy killed and getting 2 for 1, but that doesn't stop it from just being a really efficient, 1-cost card that can just kill something. And I think that these 2 are in good enough spots. I think that there's not a lot to talk about for the single target kind of pointed one-shot removal. I think that they're in good spots.
I do. I don't think there's any.
I'm gonna actually delete Blade Warrior for now as well because we've already kind of beaten that guy to death.
All right, hear me out. The first 2 cards, let's skip.
Yeah, we'll do those last.
Those for the end.
We'll do those last. I actually want to talk about the water cards because we have actually gone.
You want to show the new version? Incursion Plants, or the working version?
Yeah, I will
should,
in
right?
just
Like,
a second.
yeah.
Yeah, I will in just a second. I opened all those INDD files so that they'd be available for this debate. But we're back to our sort of color pie, conversation a little bit here. We definitely have seen, when talking about unit damage, you have a lot more air and fire sort of represented for direct damage to units. Water does have, and I mean this is seen straight away in the very first shrine that you get inside of set 1, the Unseen City. Water has a sub theme where they can ping for a single point of damage at a time on units. Yep. This is echoed in multiple sets coming forward. There are a lot of effects that do stuff like this. Spiked Walls, the shrine improvement inside of set 1, is meant to be a water sort of based shrine improvement. They've got a lot of this type of effect. So this right here, it's not an easy trigger. You can only have so many stealth units in your deck, but it's the type of trigger that you will be able to utilize in a lot of water decks. This trigger as well. If you're playing these stealth guys, obviously you're going to be able to attack with them. It's easy-ish to utilize. The big conversation with this card is the effect is prefaced with a D. That means it triggers from the dead zone. You have to actually get this card into your dead zone, which means you either have to play it or, as we found out, use libraries. And
oh man, it felt so good using libraries.
Libraries is discard a card to draw a card. It's a shrine improvement. It's an easy way to get incursion plans into your dead zone early. Yep. But we very quickly realized that it was the only way to get this card into your dead zone early, because you can never pay 4 for this effect. It was just not worth it.
There was just like, by turn 4, it was like not worth it. Even by turn 10, like.
And actually, I'm gonna pull up
hard cap elsewhere that like paying the 4 mana, and like we played
we played that deck a bunch.
100 games on it.
Yeah, we played that deck a bunch. And I want to quickly.
Never wanted to cast it.
I want to very quickly draw some attention to why this card cost 4 to begin with. The idea was that you curve it behind this card, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, the stealth decks all want to play these cards that interact with stealth in multiple ways. Invasion Tactics gives your whole board a pump, basically, and the idea here is that Incursion Plans was going to increase your stealth values, which would then also increase your power, and now your guys are really just not getting defended. Even if your opponent's got some stealth ones and stuff, kicking around, you're just getting in.
Or sometimes just 15 your opponent.
Yeah, which happens. But it was just too expensive. It was really just too expensive. Yeah. So
it's like, if you ever wanted to play your Invasion Tactics, you never wanted to curve out into this though.
Yeah.
Because it's I want to play another guy because I want to maximize my Invasion Tactics. Where if you wanted to curve Invasion Tactics into Incursion Plans, you already had to have a board built up, and it just
it's true.
It felt so counterproductive to do it that way, and even comboing the 2 spells or the 2 events into one turn was
it was too difficult because that cost 7. So
it was too difficult. It was just not worth it. It was I'd rather play this other guy in my hand than cast his Incursion Plans. The casting side was just so irrelevant that I literally gave up a shrine improvement.
Yep, which is that's a big choice.
That's a big investment.
Yeah.
For literally, it was just this card, right?
You had no other interactions.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was just Incursion Plane to put in the
I mean, it's that, and you get some card selection when your opponent preps on you, right? You just trigger it, and but yeah. Generally speaking, yeah. So this is the unreleased version that I'm looking at. We changed it from a 4-cost card down to a 2-cost card. So now you're looking at the idea that you can build a board on turns 1 through 4, and then on turn 5 you have the 1-2 punch of Invasion plus Incursion. You actually could put it all together, right?
Yep.
And the card only costs 2. So now if you don't want to invest in libraries, you can just play the card at some point and get it into your discard pile, dead zone. Excuse me. And the effect is a little bit different. It doesn't give stealth. It now gives evasion, right? Still affects your units with stealth. We toned it. I think, in my opinion, this is toning it back a little bit. I think that making your guys essentially fully unblockable and giving them the extra power pump from Invasion Tactics was definitely better.
It was.
But I think that this is going to play. I think this is going to be relevant.
For an Alpha Strike kind of turn where you're just all right, first action, give my guys evasion 1.
Yep. And now if you've got targeted effects, you're gonna be paying extra for them. So
extra mana. Yeah, it taxes your opponent's mana. And for those who don't know, because I also didn't know, because there's no rule book for me to read. The
I'm
units
attacked.
gain evasion 1. Yeah, you should be. It was purposely said like that. It does not affect if the card's already being targeted.
Correct.
So if someone already casted a Call of Lightning on your guy, and you respond with incursion plans, they do not have to pay the extra 1.
Yeah, in the case where like you put a speed on this with an air essence or something, it doesn't become a pay 1 counterspell because evasion is a targeting criteria. So if you've already played your Call Lightning, even though it hasn't resolved yet, it has already targeted. So
and
gaining
for that
evasion
reason,
after that point doesn't actually help you.
Yep, and for that reason, I know you and I talked about it in personal DMs. We both kind of were like, I think this works then.
Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah, I think it would actually be kind of like a little too good if it was the other thing.
Right, exactly. It would be. Well, that was my concern when you first sent me this. And I was like, that's broken.
Hang on, Ken. Slow it down.
And then you explained the rules to me that don't exist.
Okay. They exist. They're just all up here. They're all up here. You're gonna get Cathy, like you two are gonna get together with like pitchforks and torches and be like at my like front door. Like,
to be fair, the rule book is kind of written in the like dialogue for the Learn to Play.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have a rule book in front of me? Nope. Okay.
We can Google share it with you.
Yeah.
That's not the answer, but.
Well, like when we were writing the script for all the Learn to Play videos, I was like, this is basically the first draft of the rule book.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Okay, so yeah, I think that those ping effects in the stealth deck.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
They're good.
Yeah.
I think the big takeaway with what's it called? The one we were just talking about, the incursion plans, is that this bottom effect is what matters. Okay.
Yes.
And that effect's not going anywhere. I really think that as long as that is preserved, whatever I have to do to this effect and this effect, it doesn't matter. Just make it make some kind of sense, and then this bottom line of text is what the decks that play it really care about, right? So I'm happy with this version, like giving it a try. We obviously haven't had any reps with this because these are all like edits that I've made within the last like 2 weeks.
The first effect could not exist. This could literally be 2 mana, put this in my dead zone, and I'm pretty sure I still play this.
Okay, I mean that's an important data point, honestly.
Like that second effect out of the 100 games I played were night and day in a lot of matchups.
True.
Like in all honesty, if it was pay 2 mana to help me deal with an aggro matchup, absolutely, I am paying 2 mana for no effect until it hits my dead zone.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like I said, that is an important data point to realize how critical that effect is for the heavy stealth decks. Actually, let's do Lightning Warrior first.
I was gonna say I don't even think we have to talk about Shaman the Gale.
No, we talked about him a little bit when we just went through the first time.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Card's perfect. Delete. I hate this. I hate this card in a good way though.
Everybody who's not an air main hates this card, and people who play a lot of air are just like, what would I do without my Lightning Warriors?
Well, I play a lot of air too, but like being on the opposing side of a Lightning Warrior, you're just like, man, I hate my life. This card is hard to deal with sometimes.
It can be hard to deal with. I mean, targeted strike and Call Lightning very often don't deal 4 damage, so that's already an issue. Your hard kill spells, Assassin, Drown, whatever, Backstab, obviously just handle it, not an issue.
Yeah.
There's some nuance to this card that people don't necessarily think about right away. Number one, it's not going to be great as a come from behind card a lot of the time.
No, you have to be ahead or on equal board.
Yeah, if you jam this guy into 2 or 3 enemy units and you don't have any other board,
you're losing.
And you activate it to kill one of their guys, the fact that this card becomes dazed and drops speed down to 0 means that their other guys can just bash in, punch him while he's down. 0 speed, he doesn't deal damage back. He's just taking it and just dies. So you played a 5 cost plus an extra air to activate. You played a 6 cost 1-for-1. You played a 6 cost Drown at that point, right? Gain a couple life because the units attack Lightning Warrior instead of you.
Yep. I mean,
that's not great.
You can't attack directly into it when it's dazed.
Well, you can because it exhausts itself.
Oh, is that part of daze?
Well, no. It just this card says air, exhaust, daze.
Yeah.
It does all 3.
That's how I used to deal with it. Is just you let him get his effect off, and then you punch it in, and then you go, okay, I don't care anymore. And it does make certain matchups with it and your activations really tricky.
We were playing on TTS the other night. I think it was actually. I'm trying to think who. I think it was Zoltan and Trollper were playing actually. And I was in there watching and just kind of, I don't know, I was modding the game a little bit and also working on some cards or something. And they both had Lightning Warriors in play and were figuring out how to activate them back and forth. It was like kind of cool because like one player would like play an air event so that their lightning warrior was going to become faster via the middle trigger, and then the other player would like have to respond with their lightning warrior right away, otherwise the other one would be too fast. And it was just like this really like kind of interesting back and forth. And like you know, yeah, you just end up having to like figure out. And that's also a good side note, is that building your lightning warrior, like which essence you put on it, can also matter quite a bit, because sometimes you want to have it with extra speed, sometimes you want to have it with extra power, sometimes you want to just put a dual essence on it because you need dual essence in your deck. Sometimes you can. I've actually played this guy with extra HP so that he like always survives a hit from enemy lightning warriors, right?
Yep, I've seen that.
There are a lot of builds of this. It's a great card for throne room, like already naturally a 5 cost, so it gains the power. I've used multiple different versions of the +1 cost essences to like give either HP and speed or HP and power or whatever, right? Just another card that just has like so many very, very viable options for what essence you can put on it. You know, it just feels good to have those options, and when you're deck building, be like, okay, what do I want to be best against? You know, what are my deck's shortcomings? If I'm soft to aggro, what do I make sure that this card does its most value in these matchups? Or am I looking for the control finisher? Do I need to make sure that it doesn't die to X, Y, or Z removal spell or whatever? You know, and that's the really interesting, you know.
And you can put the like some of the water essences on it. And
Yeah.
evasion.
You can put pay 2. Yeah, you can put evasion 2. You can put +2 HP on this guy. You can put like an HP and a power, or an HP and a speed. If you do HP and speed, it also triggers airbound, so you actually get HP, speed, and power. A lot of options. But yeah, the card's a little sticky. The card's a little tough, but I think that it's a dynamic card. I think that when it's in play, the games are usually more interesting than less interesting. So get rid of him. Shaman we already talked about. I don't want to spend a long time on this one. I think that this guy's like super fair. I think that investing a bunch of cards to kill everything but Shaman is going to be the right play sometimes, but it's like never going to be like, oh, I discarded 5, I got you now. Like, you know. No, yeah, it's very rare that is what ends up happening. I think that this is the like AoE card that we always wanted. Like this is the one that makes the most sense out of the 3 that we're about to talk about.
Oh God.
Let's start here.
The one-sided board one.
Bad player, but I don't think these cards are that bad, like that amazingly overpowered.
You are so incredibly wrong, and I don't have enough
I
time
to
on
the
this
resource zone early game so often because I'm just like, I'm never gonna get turn 5. I'm never gonna get turn 6.
Yeah.
Backbreaking.
I don't disagree with what Cathy's saying in the sense that like
aggro, not so much because you're probably dead by turn 5.
I don't know if that's true.
I've been dead a lot on turn 4, turn 5.
It really depends on how tuned your deck is to beat aggro otherwise, right? Because it's hard to say, oh, this card is strictly not good against aggro, because the real issue is like if I'm just playing like a high HP 2 drop, high HP 3 drop, like defending a bunch, setting up for turn, like planning for turn 5 when you're gonna have to like make some type of a you know risky alpha strike where like you have to like mix in a kill spell or something to get your guys through my like high HP units. I've just like set the table for you to have to get like 4 for 1 by this card. Like it's just gonna happen.
That's why this card's so good.
Yeah.
Like you can set it up so well to never blow up, like never kill your own guys.
Right. Or you just let it kill your own guys that have already got damage on them, or have already defended, or have already used their exhaust effect, or you just
like a big attack where you didn't take 5. You're like,
yeah,
sure, I lose my guy, but I'm gonna blow up their entire board.
You have all the keys to the city with this card because you get to say when it happens.
At one point, you could actually, with certain essences, you can make this card uncounterable.
Yep.
You could literally give this card +4 speed and just not care.
Yep.
About literally anything. Can do activations, like.
Yep.
So little cards can actually get up to 7 speed. So I think that was the version you were playing, right? Like you had this at 7 speed.
At
one point.
I've actually played Hurricane and Heatwave both with 7 speed.
7 speed, yeah.
In different decks and stuff.
So backbreaking.
Yeah.
Like literally, like we've had games where like at turn 5, I stopped playing things and stopped like attacking and doing certain things because like if you like even like forget about this card for a moment, this card's gonna throw you out of the game so fast.
I will say this. Cathy might be onto something a little bit, because if you are certain that your opponent has Hurricane, most of the times your opponent is going to get the best Hurricane when you go attack, 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 and they cast it on your third attack, kill the two guys that they either like took the damage or chump blocked, plus the guy you're actively attacking with, which blanks your combat for the turn, kills the guy that just attacked, they get the 3-for-1, and then they go prep. Like, those are the best Hurricane turns, right? So if I'm the player playing against the guy that's sitting there with 5 air on tap, waiting, I'm going to go attack. They're going to do their stupid little thing. I'm going to go attack again. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. And then I'm going to prep. I'm not going to take that third attack. I'm going to like make them get a 2-for-1, and I'm going to get a card back on the prep, right? And I don't know. I think that that's a good play if you are certain that your opponent has Hurricane, right?
Yeah.
What I'm worried about is, does the existence of Hurricane make it where every aggro and mid-range player has to play that attack pattern every turn of every game if they're playing against an air deck?
Past turn 5?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I brought this up to you before of my main concern with this card. There's a card in set 2 that is also a board wipe.
Okay.
But doesn't have the speed that this does.
Correct. It'll never be uncountable.
Yes. Well, so, I mean, you kind of have to, right? Like, because, like, you can't, like, because then it makes certain cards just look so weak and so, like, underpowered, right? But it's, like, the same effect, theoretically, as the card. That's why I'm referencing it.
Sure. For what it's worth, I mean, the
yeah.
set 2 cards are much less finalized than the set 1 cards are, right?
Right,
Like,
I know,
set
I know,
1
I
has been through the ringer so much more at this point.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, for, like, getting the same effect, me being able to do this, like, mid-combat and sometimes keep my entire guys versus, like, other cards that kind of do this, but I guarantee have to lose my guys is absurd.
Guarantee have to lose your
my
guys, and if you've added a speed to it for the instant speed, is a 6 cost, right? So it costs 1 more, and it's killing your side of the board every time.
Yep. And this costs 5 and usually just blows up your opponent.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I don't like this from a play standpoint. Like, I think the effect's cool, but yeah, I definitely think that it does force a weird play pattern. Like, turn 5s against any air deck just become the same song and dance.
Yeah, you're just terrified of this card.
Yeah, and I think that becomes so boring. Like,
your air opponent like taps 2 and plays.
5.
they like tap 2 and play Wind Whisper, and you're just like, yes, I don't have to get Hurricane this turn. Woohoo!
You know what I mean? But like,
no, I do, and I think that having
any smart Hurricane player just like you hit turn 5 and you're like, well.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Like the next 7 turns to like try to play around this Hurricane, and then when they top deck a second Hurricane by like turn 10, you're like, okay, like I got a first Hurricane, which usually means an Alpha Strike, and then what do I have to rebuild?
I think
I got to rebuild a second Hurricane.
I think the bottom line is that this card and Heatwave are currently boogeymen, and they are manipulating the play patterns so aggressively. And this is the thing, right?
Well, show Heatwave. You want to know what's cool about Hurricane? You can curve it into this card in case they rebuild.
In case they rebuild.
Oh no!
Quickly.
Anyways, they Hurricane me. I quickly rebuild. Oh, I got Heatwave. Okay, let's just pick up cards and go home. Like.
The really funny thing is in the deck that just wants to play like 6 like Wrath effects is that they don't even really compete for essences. Like you actually just want like Might on this pretty much every time, and you want Blinding on the other one pretty much every time. Like in the deck that is playing them for that type of an effect, you just are like, oh yeah, I just have like the best like 1-2 punch for the late game.
Yeah, and that's
which goes back to my earlier comment. If your deck is built to not die early, like you get 44 other cards to make sure you don't die early. And then these 6 cards just make it where, like, the longer the game goes, there's just no way you can lose.
No, yeah, and that's one of the problems I brought up before when we had this discussion in person. It was just like Hurricane into Heatwave.
Yep.
Wow, amazing. Like, sure, if I did the play pattern that you were talking about, where you're like, you know, I gotta attack funky and like leave guys behind. I get the prep, sure. I lose half my board, untap. Get Heatwaved on my combat, and then they prep, and then I'm so far out of this game.
I agree.
And the fact that you get 6 copies of a card that are just so game manipulating and so backbreaking in the same deck. It's not even like you had to splash 2 other colors to get like Hurricane plus this like higher dark card theoretically. Like just saying. It's literally the same card.
Final interesting thing that I kind of just realized, if I'm being honest. And we'll show kind of the new versions of these, and I think we're going to kind of wrap up after that. But we're talking about like, oh yeah, you can make these like really kind of exaggerated plays and like be very careful about Heat Wave and Hurricane, and like you can tiptoe around them and like have better chances, but they're still backbreaking even in those environments. Number one, and number two, not everybody is going to be super privy and super understanding of all their matchups to the point that they're going to play perfectly around these cards. There are just going to be a lot of players who are like, I am the aggro player, I'm here to attack, and they're going to just get buried by this. And yes, it'll be a hard knocks lesson. They'll start to figure it out at some point, but like, I don't want to lay my game down in front of people and have the first thing that they get is like some ringer with the like full play set of Heat Waves and Hurricanes just starting off, I bought 6 boxes of the first set, I've got all the cards, I built the best deck, and just annihilating everybody at their locals. Like, that is not a play experience that I want to introduce to people. So,
it's going to be miserable.
Without further ado, and you actually mentioned this earlier, you said the current iteration of Hurricane is not even that good against aggro, and I kind of agree and disagree. I think that there's a cross-section there to be talked about.
There is, but like theoretically, like, I've been dead turn 4 and turn 5 a lot before my 5th resource. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I do.
Against like
I do.
Mercurian routine decks. So like that's my premise of like Hurricane theoretically is not that good, but like, and if you build your deck correctly, like Hurricane into Heat Wave just ends games. Yeah. And they don't even do damage to the enemy shrine. It just ends the game.
So
There's a board wipe that says GG next game.
We've been actually toying around with this version a little bit. This is one that even though it hasn't been kind of gotten the stamp of approval yet, we've actually tried this in a couple of games. If it looks familiar, it's because it's kind of just AoE Call Lightning, kind of like a little bit different, a little bit less power, but a little bit more, whatever, a little bit more AoE. And I obviously already like gushed about how interesting Call Lightning is to build as a card, like which essence choices you can make and so on and so forth. This one kind of just has all the same choices. Yeah. And not necessarily like to the point that your Call Lightning and your Hurricane are competing for the same essence. It's just that you get a lot of like deck design space. Yeah. You're like, okay, what can I play here? What can I play here? What's going to make this good? What's going to make this good? And you get all these choices. And I think that this is actually going to do 2 things. Number one, what you had mentioned, it's going to actually be a decent counter card to your like spammy, like 1 and 2 drop aggro type decks, which I'm happy to exist because right now there really isn't anything. Right now it's play guys that defend well and
I block a lot.
Yeah. So I think that that's good. And number 2 is like I said, it just gives another very dynamic card, whereas the 5-cost Hurricane was pretty much only ever +2 speed or +4 speed. That was it. Yep. There was nothing else that was worth considering. So you get a card that again gives you more deck design options, does a more specific job. It like answers a specific thing. So again, when you're building your deck and you say, oh, I'm kind of soft to a deck that just goes like 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, I should definitely be playing a playset of Hurricane. You know what I mean? You get to make those choices.
I also like this card because it also has the same thing that I love about Firebomb and Earthquake is it hits your own stuff.
Very astute notice.
Yeah.
The old Hurricane and the old Heat Wave were one-sided pretty much. I mean, you would always customize. Whereas this is this is an equal opportunity damage dealer.
Yeah. So like theoretically, can you build this up and like just make it like the end all be all, like 3 mana, deal like 3 to everything? Sure. Yeah. But I don't know if you look too much at a lot of your air units and other cards that usually splash with air. It's usually just like Lightning Warrior that survive.
Inside of air and set 1, it's either that or Isolationist. I think are the only 2 that can actually take a hit from this thing. Yeah.
So that's why it's like this to me is like a lot better because like you have to invest a lot too. If like and it's not like okay, he attacked, boom. All right, now I get to do an alpha strike and he has nothing.
I mean, it's got an opportunity cost to it because it goes on both sides, and it's just a more reasonable card. It answers a question, whereas Hurricane just outright wins games. It's like I don't care which question you're asking. I'm just answering them all. I'm just here to kill everything.
Like your epics, like it didn't care about your epics. It didn't care about like just your overstated.
Yeah, like think about that. Griffin literally has 7 HP. Hurricane's just like take 7.
It's like get out of my game.
Yeah, so ridiculous.
So it doesn't matter. Your Griffin could be like 20 power, and you're just like Hurricane. Yep.
Okay. So the final card, and this one is.
I'm excited to talk about this.
This one is super untested. We actually had a couple of iterations in the middle where we tweaked some numbers, tweaked some effects. We tried to keep Heat Wave as a damaging card, but as we already saw, we had like Call Lightning and Ram the Gates and Firebomb and all these effects, and what ended up happening is whatever version of Heat Wave I was coming up with, it just became redundant copies for something, whether it was another copy that would, act more like a Ram the Gates, a Call Lightning, a whatever. The decks that wanted those effects were like, yeah, I'll take more of that, and they became too consistent.
Yep.
So I ripped the skin all the way off, went all the way to the bones, to the fundamentals, and said, what's something that like air and fire are either like lacking or could possibly utilize? What are some tropes that they have, so on and so forth. And I actually came up with this. I'm gonna pull up one more card actually before we unveil it. I want to show the
unit, right?
Yeah, I want to show the unit that
unit.
it's like based off of, basically.
Yeah. And I'm so good at knowing what you're about to pull up. I want you all to know we've had like zero discussion about this stream before this.
So it's actually kind of two cards.
Yeah.
So these two cards are air cards, okay? And they are very powerful. Oh, this is the wrong one. Crap. I grabbed the wrong one.
Yes, you did. I was about to say that. There we go.
That was a misclick. So these cards are very powerful effects that cost you some resources out of your hand, right? It's actually similar to the Shaman of the Gale. Yeah.
Honestly, you can put Shaman the Gale up here.
Yeah,
theoretically.
yeah, realistically. But the idea here is that you have the opportunity to turn cards in your hand into better effects, and this is something that is actually seen. It starts in set 1 and it explodes inside of set 2. There is so much cool stuff you can do with cards.
No comment from Cathy.
Yeah.
Saying, what you going talking about set 2?
I didn't say a specific card.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I knew I didn't have to say the joke again. You were gonna do it for me.
Oh, nice. So what we did is we took that logic, we took that theory, and we flipped it on its head and turned it into an offensive effect. And
Yep.
I know that I started the stream by saying that discard is one of the like least interesting like versions of gameplay that you can have, and I stand by that. And that's why this card is optional discard. And here it is. It's Heat Stroke. It's a continuous event that links to a unit for a fire and an air. And it says linked unit gains at the end of the turn, discard a card, or destroy this card. It ultimately gives the same sort of disadvantage that Call to Winds had to one of your opponent's guys. Completely untested. This is kind of like new water for us, and I'm really excited to see how this plays.
I am kind of scared of this card a little bit, just from an inside control player standpoint. But I am still excited to see how this works overall.
I think it's really dynamic.
Is super good. But
yeah,
putting it on something super early is could be theoretically irrelevant in a way.
Yeah.
It's all right, yeah, here's my 5 health, 5 power, 4 speed guy or whatever, right? And you're Heat Stroke. You're yeah, I got 6 cards in hand. I'm down to
I'm keeping this guy around for a while.
You
And
know,
that's
but
one of those things that
you top deck a Griffin or something.
Yeah.
And that's you have no cards in hand. You top deck Griffin, and it's Heat Stroke. It's oh no.
So you say that, but it's got counterplay, right? I just immediately prep, and then I can save my Griffin at least for this turn, and then we'll figure it out next turn.
Right. But but that's the part that I'm a little afraid of is that part.
So let's look at the worst case scenario. Okay, I don't prep and my guy just dies, or I do prep and just discard immediately.
Yeah.
Is a 2-cost kill spell outlandish? I mean, we've got Exploit Might, we've got Backstab, we've got all these cards that are conditional.
Right. Conditional
2-cost kill spells. That's basically what this is.
The only thing that it's a small corner case, right? Of having no cards in hand and you just top deck the end all be all card Griffin. My case is a corner case thing, but it's still something to look at. But I don't think this card's honestly going to be that bad. The only thing where your play prep is cool, I drew my big guy. Oh, I have to prep to save my big guy.
Sure, but if the board's as empty as you're describing it, don't I just get to then open attack next turn and apply that pressure, and I get another card in my hand, and
this is your come from behind thing where you're trying to come from behind, prepping and not being able to swing in. There's a lot of things to look at.
Other interesting note is if you snap prep and then your opponent has attacks behind, you can still defend, get value off of it, and then let's say you prepped into a really good card, you can still choose to just let Heat Stroke kill Griffin, right? Take a defense, let Griffin die, keep playing the game. I mean, okay, they got you with a,
Yeah, 2 mana. Yeah.
They got you. They killed your guy.
I get that, but it's just playtesting will show like
Yeah.
if this card needs any change. I do like the idea of this card a lot, but who knows how strong this card's gonna be.
Yeah, we got to see. We got to get together this weekend and play some games. I actually was talking to Cathy earlier, and we're definitely planning on having a lot of gaming this weekend because we've been kind of out of commission the last 2 weeks. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
But
those
I think we're gonna
come on out.
cut it there. I do have one quick announcement for anybody who's paying attention. We have been, working on Patreon and getting our YouTube up and getting all this stuff together, and we're really making a push of this, and we're getting to the point where some serious stuff's going to start happening. And I did hire an artist. I don't know, a week and a half-ish ago. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Almost 2 weeks ago at this point.
It was almost 2 weeks. Yeah, I want to say 10 or 11 days at least. But I've gotten some feedback and some sketches and some preliminary stuff, and I'm hoping, within the next week or so to have the first like official art to kind of to show and put on a character and describe and, start talking a lot more about what the game's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, what the color pie really means. Get some flavor in there, start talking character design, start talking, where do these epics come from? Why do they behave the way they do? And all this different stuff. So yeah.
Even future stream of in-person games too.
Oh yeah. Once we start getting some real cards,
Start showing off the real cards in person rather than just like TTS.
Yeah, with these awesome symbols.
Arts, yeah. Get to see a real life Griffin just punching for 12.
Oh, I can't wait for this. But yeah, it's coming.
There's a lot of huge things coming.
It's in the pipe, guys. We're doing it. We're taking this real seriously. So just again, and I say this all the time. I just really want to thank the patrons and the people who come in here and watch these streams. Everybody who's involved at this point. We're only going to get bigger from here, and
Y'all truly the best outside of Troll Bear.
yeah, I mean Trollbear aside, but we love them anyway. We keep them around.
And going off of the art too, we've also got some preliminary mock-ups of like the card face template that we've been working on.
Yeah. We. Shameless plug
Not
there,
me.
huh? But no, yeah, we do have a slightly
Those two,
redesigned
not
card
me.
face that we're going to be working with to get the things kind of sorted a little bit better. And we're, again, preliminary, but the idea is that we're trying to really nail down, something that could be a little bit more official, start working towards getting some demo materials and some, these are medium to long-term goals, but they're the next goals. Like that's what we're shooting for. So, yeah, be on the lookout for all that stuff. We'll be, we'll be posting on Discord, we'll be posting on the Instagram, all this type of stuff. And,
Also, and theoretically, maybe events.
yeah, we actually did do a little bit of talking about that, about how would a potential like TTS event look? Is that something that we could do for, for the Discord, for the patrons, get some people in there. And that's going to take a little bit more organizing, but yeah, that's
sure.
all on the horizon.
But just know, for those in this call and those who didn't make it and possibly watching on the YouTube later,
Yeah.
there's a long list of things, and I promise you, they are constantly in Ken's head. No matter at what point throughout the day, guarantee you Ken is thinking about
Just-
it.
All day
Just-
long, it's just flawed.
Just-
No, it's not. Sometimes
Just-
we talk about how he made a misplay in a board
Just-
game, and he's real angry about it, and he lost because of it.
Just make sure you know that it is
Kingmaker.
all in my head, though. I don't ever write any of it down. Like that's the important part.
That's why the rest of us are here to constantly
Yeah.
remind him.
Keep me honest. But all right, yeah, thank you again to my two co-hosts.
Yeah.
Can't really do this without you guys. I would hate to sit here and talk by myself. Thanks again to the patrons. Thanks to the couple of viewers we had bounce in here, and Ruben had some awesome feedback tonight. I appreciate him being in here. We'll see you guys next time. We're gonna schedule another one of these, about a week from now. I think Thursday's been the best night for us up to this point, and we've kind of stuck with it. But we'll be doing this again real soon. So until next time, thank you again, and we'll see you.